So I'm certain you guys have seen it by now that there was some awesome Battlefield news yesterday about the next Battlefield, as well as, most importantly, the new Battlefield Labs program that's going to be rolling out at some point this year. Essentially a CTE, or closed test environment, for the game in the lead up to launch. And at the end, we also got about 8 or 9 seconds of gameplay from the new Battlefield launching in 2025. Now, so many other creators have already covered all the news, so be sure to go and check out your favorite Battlefield creators for the actual details. Or obviously just watch the actual Battlefield Labs trailer. I'd recommend watching that anyway, but that is not what I'm here for today, to talk about all of the new info. I'm here because I'm an absolutely sick individual who put this 9 seconds of gameplay into Premiere Pro and literally changed the layout of the program to make the screen as big as I could actually manage, and frame by frame scoured the trailer for any and all information. And so let's get stuck into a trailer breakdown for the new gameplay. Now, it's worth mentioning, guys, this is 9 seconds of gameplay. I'm literally putting the tinfoil hat on here, so there is nothing crazy going on in here, but there are a few key bits of information to point out, including a very interesting date that is shown in the trailer as well. So without wasting time, let's get stuck right into it. Now, in the first little scene that we get to see here, the first thing to note is that it looks like the player is using an M4A1. It might be a slight variation of that. It might even be like a non-real weapon that they've changed the name to it or whatever, but it definitely looks like an M4A1. That being said, I'm generally pretty wrong on weapons because I'm just not that into weapons other than what I know about them in games. So please do correct me if I'm wrong there. It is also worth mentioning as well that it has a foregrip as well as a holographic sight, which seems to touch a little bit on customization. We can also see in this scene what looks to be an M1 Abrams tank. Again, that's just what it looks like. It might not actually be that, but it is definitely what it's modeled off anyway. It is also interesting to note, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this, that we see pretty much a faceless soldier here with almost like a mask over his face, or like a balaclava. There were skins pretty similar to this in Battlefield 3 and 4, and a lot of people have kind of called for that, the whole faceless soldier thing to come back. So that is exciting to see. Now, whether this is multiplayer gameplay or a single player mission, I'm not too sure, but I'm hoping it is multiplayer because that would lead to us having some more faceless characters to play as, rather than the specialist types that we had in 2042, even though we know they're going back to the class system. But I really don't want to see like characters and stuff. I want it to go back to that faceless soldier type of system. Now, that same soldier is holding what initially looked to me like some sort of SMG, because it looks kind of small, but the more I look at it, I think that is also just an M4A1, that he's just holding at a slightly weird angle. So not too sure on that, but yeah, I think that is just an M4 as well. Lastly, we also get to see the soldier that pretty much just got blown up about a second earlier, and it looks like he survived that, and he is looking now janky as hell. He's clearly now suffering from a bad back. So that looks kind of dodgy, but obviously remember, this is pre-alpha, and it could also be a bit to do with like a fisheye lens type situation. So kind of weird looking there, but again, not really worth looking into. Now, this clip is kind of interesting. We see the soldier on the right there doing something with his left hand over the weapon. He's not holding it conventionally. It looks like potentially it is just janky and like the animation's wrong, but also it looks like he could potentially be like changing his scope or something like that. Maybe he even has this hybrid scope that he can change, or it almost even looks like he is like covering glare from the weapon or something in the distance. I'm not too sure. So I thought I would note that. Again, it could just be jank. This is pre-alpha gameplay, and we are presumably 10 months away or so from launch, so this is most certainly not finished at all. Something else kind of in line with that is that we see in this clip here, the vending machine on the left looks to be backwards, which is kind of strange. Something in this scene too is that we can see the pillars over there on the right looking like they are kind of like partially blown up. Now, this could just be for dramatic effect, but it could be similar to what they had in Battlefield 4, where you could actually blow up all of like the pillars, and it was obviously very prominent on Siege of Shanghai. That's how you blew up the main building, but it was pretty similar with a lot of buildings in that game, where if you blew up all of the pillars or the, I guess, structurally important walls and stuff, then that would cause those buildings to collapse. So again, might be looking too far into this, but it kind of looks like that type of Levolution is back. We can see a lot of destruction in this trailer, but it looks like potentially that sort of Levolution type destruction could potentially be back. Now, this is the bit where I mentioned that date. Down in the bottom right, you guys can see when it's kind of transitioning from one scene to another, there is the date 11/11/24. Now, that is a very interesting choice because obviously that date has passed now. If this said 11/11/25, I would be certain that that is the launch date. But because it says 24, it's actually kind of interesting. Now, I've got 4 different, I guess, theories for this, or reasons why that date might be there. One, it is simply just to throw people off and give us something to speculate about, and it has absolutely no meaning. 2, potentially this was when the gameplay was recorded. That was only a few months ago now, so that would potentially line up with this, that the gameplay and stuff was recorded in November of 24. The one that I think is the most realistic is that this is potentially when the game is set, or even this specific mission, since obviously the 11th of the 11th, 2024 is very specific. It's not like it just says the year. So I don't think the game itself is entirely set on that date, but maybe this mission or the lore behind this map or something like that, or like I said, even just the whole game is potentially set in 2024. I think that's probably the most realistic. But then as for a tinfoil hat theory here, which I want to be clear, I don't think this is correct, but it's fun to speculate about anyway. I wonder if this was potentially a placeholder for when the game was maybe meant to launch, because that is pretty much 3 years after 2042 launched, and that is generally when Battlefield games launch. We usually have about a 3-year cycle, whereas this one we know is now 4 years. So the other thought I had was, yeah, maybe this is like a placeholder for when the game was initially meant to launch before an internal delay or something like that. Again, I very highly doubt that. I personally kind of take this as the game is potentially set in 2024, but I thought it was very interesting that that date is down there, and I had to bring it up. Again, it could just be to throw us off, so I'm not going to look into it too deep, but I just love speculating about this type of stuff, so I thought I would throw that in there. Now, in this next scene, after that little transition there, the first thing I want to mention is that there are so many freaking particles in this scene, from leaves, from sparks, rubble, dust. There is just so much going on. You can see bullets going everywhere. There's explosions in the background and stuff. There is a lot going on in this scene, which I think is awesome. That really takes me back to like a lot of the old Battlefield games. Obviously, it doesn't mean much. It doesn't mean the game's going to be good because there's lots of stuff going on the screen, but I just was pretty impressed when I actually slowed this down and looked at all of the different things going on. If this is legitimate gameplay and it's not a cinematic, that is actually pretty damn impressive this far out from launch. Now, you can see here as well that there is clearly some sort of Arabic writing, or something similar to Arabic anyway. I'm a white man from Australia. I can barely speak fucking English as it is, so I'm not going to pretend I know what language that is, nor do I know what it says. If any of you know, please do leave a comment down below with some sort of proof. Obviously, anyone can just make whatever they want up, but yeah, it does look to me like some sort of Arabic, which could hint at it being obviously set somewhere in the Middle East. Even a place like Egypt, for example, which has kind of been rumored a little bit for this game. So yeah, I thought that was worth noting, that this kind of seems like it is going to be set in the Middle East, which I guess you can kind of guess just by looking at the map itself, but it's cool to see somewhat of a confirmation through that text. In that exact scene, we can also see some very, very awesome destruction. Again, it seems like destruction is a very important part of this game, which I'm all for. Now, the last little scene here is realistically just even more destruction. This guy has an RPG. Now, the soldier in front of him has some sort of like ghillie suit, or at least like camo. Obviously, some soldiers have like the netting, I guess, on their helmet and even on their shoulders. It could point at that guy being in the recon class, or it could just be something cosmetic. I'm not too sure, but it definitely hints at customization. And then, yeah, this part is just awesome destruction. As that RPG hits the building, you can see the whole facade of that building just crumbles. It looks absolutely sick, and I hope that that is like legitimately what the destruction is like in this game. This trailer, or it's not really a trailer, but the gameplay certainly points at destruction being essentially the focal point of what they wanted to show off. So anyway, that is pretty much it for that, 8 or 9 seconds of gameplay. Obviously, it's a small amount of gameplay, so there's not that much to really dig into, but I always love doing this stuff, and obviously, as we go forward, any like longer trailers and stuff, you can expect me to be an absolute weirdo like this again and go literally frame by frame through the whole thing. Hopefully you guys enjoy this stuff, but I sure know that I love doing this. It's just fun to look at all the cool things we could be getting. And I've got to say, this little gameplay, I'm not getting too excited because it's literally 9 seconds of gameplay, but it looks good from what we've seen so far. Now, I guess to summarize the key takeaways from this little bit of gameplay that we've seen, because this is the first gameplay of the next Battlefield, which even though it's not much, it's exciting to see. I think the first thing of note is that whether it's the game or just this map in general, it seems like it is set in the Middle East, or at least somewhere near that region. Anyway, it seems like it is potentially set in 2024 or just generally a modern setting due to that date that I mentioned. Now that seems very obvious. It is very obviously a modern setting, but technically modern could still be like 2010 era, because I would actually still count Battlefield 3 as a modern setting, even though that game is set in 2014, which is over 10 years ago now. We saw both the M4A1 and the M1 Abrams in that game too. So obviously this is a modern setting, but I think the date of 2024 points at it being like genuinely modern rather than 10 to 15 years ago, which would still be counted as modern. So anyway, that is it for a frame by frame breakdown of the 9 seconds of gameplay. Yes guys, I'm aware I'm going insane breaking down a 9-second little trailer here, probably 2 or 3 seconds of which was not even gameplay. It was like the transitions and stuff. I am going insane, I understand, but Battlefield is back. Whether it's good or bad, we'll have to wait and see, but it is exciting to have some stuff on the way. So keep your eyes peeled. I'll probably still be fairly slow with the content output just while we don't have too much news just yet, but you can rest assured as we get closer and closer to launch, there will be a lot of content on the way. And so if you guys are new around here, be sure to hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss out. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.